Hey guys, it's day 60 of the New Testament in 90 days today. We are finishing off the book of Colossians. So if you missed yesterday, Colossians is one of my favorite books in the entire Bible. I think everybody should read it. If you've never read anything else in the Bible, I think you should read two books, the book of John and the book of Colossians, to know who Jesus is and what does it look like to be a Christian. And so we are going to finish off Colossians today. There are four things I want to share with you really quickly. Two things Paul says that as Christians we should keep in our minds, and then two things that we should let be evident in our actions. So the first thing he says is at the beginning of chapter 3, since you have been raised to new life with Christ, so he's talking to Christians, set your sights on the realities of heaven where Christ sits in the place of honor at God's right hand. Think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth. Little personal story. So back when the pandemic hit, I was so frustrated and consumed with the arguing, the lack of hearing each other out, and just the anger that was going on. And we could go into all the reasons why and all the things. But I was just like, why are people so mean? I couldn't figure out why everything was happening. And I was like, I remember having a conversation with one of my friends in the midst of it and being like, I feel like there's a biblical way of seeing everything, but it's like my brain can't find it. I can't, even when I'm reading the Bible, I can't figure out how this all applies to what I'm seeing right now. And it's taken me a long time to kind of start to look back and see things a little bit clearer. But one of the reasons I think I was so derailed and frustrated at the time is because my sights were not set on the realities of heaven. My sights were not set on the truths of the Bible on a grand level. I was looking at people and expecting them to live like Jesus without Jesus. Which, I mean, how's that even going to happen, right? And so when I read this, I'm like, oh, that's what was going on at the time. And so I just think for me, I need to remember, and I wanted to share it with you, but I need to remember to constantly be setting my sights on heaven. And remember, whatever's going on here, Jesus is still in the place of honor at God's right hand. Like, he's still on the throne. Even if everything goes backwards and upside down here, God is still on the throne. Jesus is still coming back someday, and I'm going to be with him, and my hope can be in him and not in what is going on around me. So that was good for me. I hope that was helpful for you as well. The next thing he reminds us about ourselves, like an internal reminder, is as a Christian, put to death your sinful nature, put to death the sinful earthly things lurking within you. He gives a laundry list. I'm not going to repeat all that. If you want to read it, go look at Colossians chapter 3. And then he says, instead, put on your new, or I would say not instead, put to death the sinful things lurking within you and put on your new nature. And be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become like him. So it's a continual process. It's not something, it's a switch doesn't get flipped and all of a sudden we're perfect. It's a day by day, week by week, year by year process of, nope, that is not who I am anymore. This is who I am. And living in light of who you actually are with the power of God, who is always with you as a believer. What a promise. Okay. So those are the two internal reminders. The external things, Paul says, let the message about Christ and all its richness fill your lives. And then he says, teach and counsel each other with all the wisdom he gives. And so I think that this is one thing that sometimes Christians, so I'll be at church on a weekend, we go in, we listen to a message, and we walk out and we start talking to each other about what happened this week, or we took this trip and, we were on vacation and in our camper and, kids are born and kids did crazy things this week. And we're talking about all these things, but rarely do our conversations go towards, man, that message and that really stuck out to me and this is what I'm struggling with, or this is what God's really showing me this week. We don't teach and counsel each other as much as we should. And, which we'll talk about this in a second, we don't necessarily teach others about Jesus or what we're learning either. And so, man, that was really good. Another thing he says, and this kind of goes off with what I was just saying, this is in chapter 3, verse 17. Whatever you do or say, do it as a representative of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through him to God the Father. So the mental picture here is this. An ambassador, like a United States ambassador, goes into another country and represents the United States in another country, right? We, as Christians, are ambassadors for Jesus here. And so we need to represent him well. We need to love people and sacrifice for people and be humble and tell people about the goodness of God as his ambassadors. We get the privilege of doing that on behalf of God, which is incredible. The last thing that he reminds us is in chapter 4. He says, live wisely among those who are not believers and make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be gracious and attractive so that you will have the right response for everyone. I know early on when I first became a Christian, there were some times where I felt very strongly. It was like something happened inside of me. It was almost like God was saying, go talk to that person. And I went, no, I can't do that. And I let my fear of what would have happened completely consume me. And you know what I live with right now? What ifs. What if I had talked to that person? What if they were praying that someone would come and talk to them about Jesus? What if they were praying, God, will you make yourself real to me? And God was like, oh, there's Sarah. She's walking by. I'll send her over. And I said, no. I don't think that person missed out on an opportunity to encounter God because he probably chose someone else. But I missed out on an opportunity to be used by him. And that is really sad for me. And so I want to not do that anymore. And that's what we're told. Live wisely among people who are not believers and make the most of every opportunity because people need to know about Jesus. They need to know that he died for them and that they can have new life in him, that everything that they've done in the past can be forgiven and forgotten, and they can move forward as a new person with a new beginning and a new life with the love of the God who created them. People need to know that. And we need to make sure as Christians that we're representing Jesus well, that our conversation, that our words are spoken in such a way that it represents Jesus. Speak how he would speak to people. So, you know, there is so much more in the book of Colossians, even than I've shared yesterday and today. So definitely go read it. And if you have any questions, you want to chat about anything that I shared yesterday or today, I would love to have a conversation with you. So shoot me a message. Leave a comment or shoot me a private message. And if I don't hear from you today, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.